The long-awaited actual nerf to Star-Lord, Master of the Sun, is finally here. Or is it? March 26th, 2026, we have the OTA, and I honestly think Star-Lord is not the biggest nerf or adjustment in this group. Let's take a look. Leading off with Star-Lord, he is now up to a 5/8. Cannonball loses another point of power, now bringing him to 5/5. Frigga also shaves off a point of power, going down to a 3/3. The brand new Gambit, Horseman of Death, now has a new requirement, not of 5 total cost, but of 6. Gore got a buff nerf to 6/1. Mjolnir from Thor now buffs Thor 7 instead of 6. And his friend Beta Ray Bill, now that Stormbreaker goes up from being a 0/3 to now a 0/4. Also getting a buff is Strange Supreme, who's now a 2/2. And Kyera now gets an extra point of power, going up to a 3/5 as well. Weapon X wants in on the party, also gets a point of power, going up to 2/3. And lastly, Viv Vision now climbs up to a 3/4. So some buffs, some nerfs, a little bit of everything mixed all together. But if I had to rank them in regards to what's going to be most meta impactful, my number one, honestly, and I'll explain, is Gore. It is Gore over Star-Lord, who's my number 2. I'll explain. Let's continue on though. Number 3 change is probably going to be Viv Vision, which might also catch some people by surprise, but with a little explanation will make sense. Cannonball, losing its point of power, is my number 4 slot, followed by Gambit, Horseman of Death. I know, never thought a Gambit nerf would be 5th on my list, but here we are, because then we've got Kyera in 6th, followed by Beta Ray Bill's Stormbreaker. Afterwards, I'll put Thor's Mjolnir in the list. Then we're heading to Frigga, all the way down here in the bottom 3, followed by Strange Supreme and Weapon X, still at the bottom. Let's go into why this list in this order makes the most sense. First off, I'm gonna say Gore is my number 1 change. And I know a lot of people are thinking it was gonna be Star-Lord. It's not, it's Gore. Because to me, this specifically absolutely decimates and officially kills the negative deck entirely. Single-handedly, with and without Master of the Sun. Taking Gore away from the negative deck while also taking away Star-Lord Master of the Sun is a huge double smack to that deck. And the reason it came to rise, obviously, was because of Star-Lord. But when you don't have that line, the line that don't have the Gore line, you're left with Null and hoping on Iron Man stuff to work the right way. And when you're still adding that amount of tech play into there with less energy to work with, it's taken the ceiling so far down that now that you can't have Gore get pulled from Jane Foster, that is a huge, huge detriment to what this deck's viability was prior to Star-Lord of Master of the Sun. And when you remove that piece from it and you're saying, look, you're an all-in, if you want to do negative, you have your Iron Man lines and you have your Null lines. And that's basically it. Sure, throw in a Sage if you want. That's, honestly, that's not enough. That's not enough to keep that deck relevant. So out of all of the decks that got hit in this OTA, both positively and negatively, the one that's going to make the largest adjustment is going to be the negative deck. It got double smacked with the top 2 changes. But if you just hit Star-Lord, you probably could have left the Gore line. Honestly, you probably could have left the Gore line. But taking Gore and doing the Mystique treatment where you put a point of power on it so it can't get pulled by Jane Foster, now without having that extra play line of maybe having a little bit of other energy to work with from the Star-Lord as like another alt route, they really hit this deck hard, man. And now you take out Star-Lord, now you take out Gore. It could have survived with Gore, but it doesn't even have that anymore. So I think the deck is entirely dead. Like, absolutely entirely. Y'all can take Mobius M. Mobius out of your decks now because it's not a concern. Gore he needs a different kind of help now. Because Star-Lord Master of the Sun is my number 2. And the reason I put him at number 2 under Gore is because of all of the other things that you can do. Star-Lord, look, the big reason that people are upset about Star-Lord are it does the negative thing because it gives another play line to negative. Well, I mean, you're not playing a 5/8 in the negative deck anymore, so you're removing that. Secondarily, the other thing that it was doing was enabling shenanigans, things like MODOK Hela, where you could play it on turn 5, you'd get 5 floated energy, and then you could do MODOK plus Hela on the final turn. Their solve to this was to make this a 5-cost card. This is not a solve to that. I'm going to proactively tell you, I'm sorry. If you want MODOK Hela to be dead, it's not dead. All it is one more step. Because now all those players are going to end up doing is one change, maybe 2. Instead of just playing Star-Lord on 5 into MODOK Hela on 6, now they have to play either Wave or Luna Snow on turn 4, then Star-Lord, then MODOK Hela. And yes, it is another step, but it's incredibly justifiable as a step. Because to have either of those cards by turn 4 is over a 50% chance anyway. And the all-in versions of the deck have been an okay version, and there are variations that'll come from this, where you just have Ramp Hela mixed in with MODOK Hela, and it'll still be fine as a Hela deck, but it doesn't kill the line that I think that they were aiming for by making Star-Lord a 5-cost card. And as much as I've promoted and wanted this and talked about this card needing to be nerfed, as long as there is energy associated and power associated in an on-reveal, specifically in an on-reveal format of Star-Lord, we still have Star-Lord doing Star-Lord things. We do. We even so much so have it where there is still the possibility of doing Wave or Luna Snow on 3, so float the first 2 turns, into Star-Lord on 4, so you still have the simple activation, which means turn 5 has 7 energy. You can still then Zola get another 3 and 3 and have +6 energy on the final turn. There's still that line. It doesn't solve it. It makes you force one partial step that many of those decks that weren't doing the MODOK stuff were already doing in some capacity. They were doing some kind of rampy stuff to have another line for their big guys just in case. This is an adjustment. And it is, let me be clear, this is still number 2 on my list. It is going to impact how the card is played. It takes it out of the negative deck entirely, which is part of the reason that deck is dead. But in the other decks, it's not really killing it. It's more so changing your mindset on how you play it. This is now a card that you kind of combo in your head similar to maybe like a Jane Foster, who we'll talk about later too. She wasn't nerfed, but her friends were buffed. And you look at it in that sense where you're looking to do something on turn 4 into something on turn 5. You're trying to do the 1-2 combo, similar to maybe think about like Black Bolt into Stature on turn 5 into turn 6. You're building that same kind of play rhythm with this card. It is a combo card to make the most of it come to be, to do the crazy things comparatively. That was a little Seussian, but run with it. I do think that this is a meaningful change to the card. At the same time, this might have just become a 5/13 that gives +5 energy. What? Also, since we're on the topic of Hela, just today's video, by the way, is sponsored. Today's video is sponsored by me and the ItsGuestGaming.shop shop, where you can have your own Marvel Snap inspired mug. Take a look in the link below. Is that how you're supposed to do these kinds of sponsored ad reads? Like, I don't even know, man. Like, my editor will do something with it. Do like an animation or have fun with it, dude. Ready? 1, 2, 3. It's a green mug on a green screen. Give me a break. Next up on the impact list is Viv Vision. Now, I have this as my 3rd change because we've watched the progression of Viv Vision go from a 3-2 to a 3-3 to now a 3-4. And 3-4 is nothing to sneeze at because now you can easily win a lane on turn 3 and get it to proc off on the turn in which it's played. The biggest downfall to Viv Vision was you really needed it to beef up on a turn 2 to make something of note happen so you can get the proc on turn 3 when you want to play this for all those buffs. it didn't do enough then. Then they brought it to 3-3 and it was okay. But now at 3-4, winning the lane is a lot easier at 3-4 on turn 3 than it was two versions? Let's just go versions ago. And 3-4 now, even if you get it to happen one time, and say you played out a 1 cost on 1, a 2 cost on 2, and a Vivision on 3, that's still 3 buffs into your hand, which means you've already gotten 3-7 value out of the card, potentially. Yet alone if it happens more times. And it's a move card. I think this is actually really substantial. I think you start seeing Vivision kind of get played into not just good card stacks, but a lot more synergy into the hand buff style, because we watched some of the chaos happen with the Kahori nerf / adjustment of how those cards buff and nerf and etc. And I think now that you've brought Vivision into the mix again, this might be potentially one of the much more plug and playable cards in the game, because 3-4 that gives whole hand buff to win a lane. 3-4 is nothing to sneeze at. And I think that it is enough of a buff to it that you do have to start playing around it when you see it on the board. Like when you saw it on the board on turn 3, and if it didn't win that lane, you kind of ended up ignoring it, because then maybe it gave the other person's hand 1 round of buffs and that's it. If this thing goes off on turn 3, it is a legitimate, like, hey, dude, watch out for this card, style card, and it's going to move, and it's a decent body at 3-4 doing that move. This is a card you actually have to really consider on the board if you're the opponent. You have to start playing around it. And for that reason, I also think as a player, putting that game on the board for your opponent, turn by turn, to say, follow the bouncing vision, Viv, that would have been a better joke. Like that's absolutely something you have to start thinking about as a player, because you're now forcing your opponent to play around the Vivision, while at the same time, you're leaning further into the fact that they have to lean into that fact. So if they're playing around the Vivision and they're doing the moves, what you've basically created now with a competitive Vivision card is your own little Sanctum Showdown. That's what you did, because now you're playing for that lane. That's what the card already was, but it wasn't a serious game. Now at 3-4, it is a serious game. Or if I'm the opponent, I'm watching that Vivision. I'm really making sure that they're not getting the buffs on turn 3, /4, etc. So if we start seeing a shell where it's a lot more identifiable after turn 2 that, oh, this is a Vivision deck, be careful here. Yeah, I would be really be paying attention to this card. I think it's going to be making a lot more appearances now. It is a very strong card at 3-4. Be weary of Vivision, and the mind games more so that it's going to play for both of you. Cannonball comes in as my 4th ranked adjustment, and the reason I put him at 4 is because when he was a 5'8", 5'7", when he first came out, it was just a good body, and it could clear the lane, and that's fine. Then they brought him down to 5'6", and he's still an body that can clear a lane, and that's okay. But now at 5'5", you're basically only playing this card if you are 100% committing that you're going to be doing a destroy. You can't just use this as a knockout a big card anymore, because it's not a substantial enough body for 5 cost to justify playing it on 5. I think there are much better plays to play around big cards now. You can make, hear me out. There's argument now that at this being 5-5 that has to destroy with Mercury, there's argument that Hellion is a better play now, because you can move things out to reinforce a different lane and throw the lane, rather than play a 5-5 that requires you to have Mercury get into that lane if it's not already there, and then do the destruction. There's argument for that, because a 5-5 body is not a lot. You play 5-5 for a meaningful impact. Look at Sarah. Sarah's a 5-5, and people respect it as a very good card to drop on turn 5 because of the impact it gives you on turn 6. This used to be a card you could play as this +1 drop, and it wins turn 6, with the option of doing it as a turn 5 play. I don't think you can do this as a turn 5 play anymore, because it's just not that meaningful of a body. And as they've continued to take Cannonball down, you're basically telling the community, if you're going to play Cannonball, you're investing into the Cannonball line. You are straight up going all in on this is what Cannonball is and does. He is only meant to destroy and take advantage of that aspect of his kit. The knockout perk of it, if you're gonna play, why would I play a 5/5 Cannonball when I could play a 4/5 Juggernaut? If you're trying to win the final turn of the game, I need another energy to mess with. And 1 energy versus 2 energy is a big difference on turn 6. So this is an all-in, you're trying to destroy your opponent's card. You have to play this with Mercury. I don't see any world where you play this without it. It is a meaningful change to the card, which is why it's so high in my rankings. But the play rate of it is probably going to tank in comparison to how high I have it ranked. I'm doing a lot of rhyming today. Next up is Gambit, Horseman of Death. And this card, it's an appropriately released valve for the Sholau decks. It does the destroy stuff, but you look at the decks that it's got the most impact in, and I think it's the decks that really get 2 of these out. It's the ones that get them via either Moon Girl, Bastion, Frigga, like cards that are duplicating it to get you 1 more. Even Prodigy's in that mix. And I've talked about the changes that I want to make all these card duplicators, you know, get fixed. And they touched 1 of them, but just inappropriately. I know what I said. And I just think that making Gambit a 6 cost total requirement versus a 5 cost total requirement of played created cards, all it's really doing is leaning you out of Iron Patriot synergy and leaning you more into Valentina. And I don't see that as necessarily bad. I see that as just refinement. I think that if you're playing Gambit of Horseman of Death, you're removing Iron Patriot now because there is the chance that you might not hit the requirement. You want the 6 costs of total created cards. And then what you're also doing is, if you're doing the other bouncing styles, you're looking at things like you have to have your Quinjet into Moon Girl, or you're bastioning an entire lane and playing all 3 2s down to give you a total of 6 cost, because it should exceed the 6 even if you're picking up something like a 3, a 2, and a 1, and it's balanced out as 2 2 costs, as 3 2 costs, it's still a total of 1 2 3. That gives you 6. I still think that this play line is incredibly viable. More, at least in my experience, let me know in the comments below if this has been yours, if you've played this card or played these decks. More often than not, I'm hitting the qualification with 6 than I am squeaking by getting on there with 5. And the amount of duplicators that enable you to have 2 to 4 variations of this on the board and just completely clearing your opponent's side on the final turn or the final 2 turns, I don't think this is as meaningful of a change as the developers might want it to be. The change that Gambit needs is one of 2 things. It either needs to be a total of 7 cost, which to me actually kills the card, or Gambit needs to be a 4/6, so that way it can't be duped. And the card is right in line with a whole bunch of what those 4 cost cards are. It's like a Juggernaut. It's like a Negasonic Teenage Warhead. It's like a Stardust, a Supergiant. It's a control tech card that has a massive impact on your opponent's side of the board in the turn in which it's played, or in this case, the turn in which it's activated. And I think it's much more justified at that than just giving this a 6. I really don't think this makes that huge of a deal for the card. All it does, and which is why it's right in the middle of the tier list, is refine where you're playing it. It leans into the Infinity Ultron style decks, and it leans into making your deck potentially better because you're taking out Iron Patriot and you're leaning all in on Valentina, Infinity Ultron. That's the direction you really end up going, is 2 costers. If you have Quinjet Gambit in your hand opening the game, you can, the second you know it's not a ramp deck, you snap. It's still a good card. It's hurt by its removal for the variance from Iron Patriot because it's more projected variance, but now you just guarantee yourself to play Valentina, and I think it's still good. At the same time, they've tried to combat this with Kyera, going up to a 3/5, and this is one of the more free changes they could have made. They probably should have done this when Gambit came out. No joke, because it then would have forced deck building to really get interesting. And I think that this change is way too long overdue for Kyera, pre-Gambit even. This could have been a 3/5 a long time ago. I think we all are we're all in agreement on that one, everyone? Yes, okay. So I don't see any bad that necessarily comes from this. It's a buff, it's a point to power that it more than well deserves. And let's also realize that with the death of Shang-Chi, you're not playing Kyera to protect your 6 costs. You're playing your Kyera to protect your 1 costs. And as a 3/4, it was an unjustified body to protect your 1 costs. Now it's a 3/5. Now it's a justified body to protect your 1 costs. So if you're doing Ozymandias stuff, you're doing Patriot stuff, you're doing Ultron stuff, you're doing Zeus stuff, you need to drop this on turn 3. You don't feel that bad about it anymore, especially as we're getting more and more into seeing these Killmonger decks are coming back. We're seeing the Gambit decks are making rises consistently. If you need to play Kyera, you don't feel like an awful person for doing so now. So yay, congrats to you. Next, I'm going into Beta Ray Bill's Stormbreaker, and the devs talked about that for both Stormbreaker and for Mjolnir. They got the buffs for the same reason, which is Jane Foster, because they think the negative decks are dead, and they want Jane Foster to have a place in the metagame. So Jane Foster's original intent was really supposed to be reinforcing Thor. It's supposed to go Thor into Jane into, you know, make big plays, including Odin on the final turn to make it happen again. It's all the Asgardians. Then Beta Ray Bill came out and people wanted to lean even further into that deck. Now when you reinforced Stormbreaker, and I'm even going to throw, let's keep the conversation mixed here with them, with Stormbreaker and with Mjolnir. I think that this right now presents both cards to be much, much better for this entire shell of a deck. First off, BRB has always been a pretty good card when you do the line of even just simply, as I've fought for before, Beta Ray Bill into Jane Foster as a 2-card package. Now, if you look at what Stormbreaker is doing as a 0/4, taking that 4/6 body of Beta Ray Bill and turning it into a 4/12, this is now a 4/16 total value of 1 card. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's stronger single card, like single lane potential, than the just recently released Selene. Like that's noteworthy. This is a lot of power that can come from this. And if you're running the full combo, where then you also get Mjolnir, who turns now your 3/5 Thor into a 3/12, that's stronger than the recently released Caliban, which was a total 3/11. The difference is you have a lot more agency with this, and it is less steps. So I'm actually really excited to go back into the Hammer Bros deck and kind of lean heavier into it, because I think there's a lot of potential here. It might force us to have other protection pieces in the mix, like Cosmos and what's his name? The card we all hate. Luke Cage, that guy. Like, you might really have to lean into some of those to make this truly work, but what I do think is that Hammer Bros are actually something now, where Thor is an actual body to play, you know, to mess around with, and Beta Ray Bill's got 16 power built within him on a single proc. Don't even get me started with Odin and Grandmaster. So I have Frigga all the way down here towards the bottom as a 3/3, because I just don't think this changes anything about the card. It doesn't. It doesn't make any meaningful impact to the play line of the card, the turn in which you want to play the card, and the benefit in which the card gives you. The card gives you so much benefit, right? It is about everything that's not Frigga. It's about what am I getting from Frigga? It's giving me another Gambit. It's giving me another Victoria hand. It's giving me another Hammer. I mean, that's what it wants to do. It wants to give you multiples. It gives you another Dokken. It gives you another Bullseye. It gives you, there's so many, you get the idea, right? That's where the value of this card comes from. While it's still at 3 cost, and it specifically can benefit Victoria Hand being a duplicator. Without it becoming a 4 cost, I think the card is, you could make it a 3-0 and it still gets the same play rate, to be completely honest. I know KM and others are going to disagree. Hi, Taxi. Yes, you can go to the doggies. Yes, go see. And it is just one of those things that, like, I don't fully understand the protection that Second Dinner has against card duplicators. I wanted Star-Lord to get adjusted. I wanted the card duplicators to get adjusted and Gambit to get adjusted in different ways, because these make more sense for the balance of the game, in my personal opinion. And I'd love to talk to Glenn Jones about it, especially now knowing that these are the directions they went with some of them, without hearing the argument of this is the direction that certain cards need to go first, where you have to take stepping stones and do one change at a time, or one increment at a time, or one thingy at a time, without ruining the dream of the card. Like, we all know some of the lines from Glenn Jones already. I just don't see how this change to Frigga, this change to Gambit, changes those cards. I just don't. This card gets no different. So I keep it at the 3rd from bottom. Even more meaningful, though, than Strange Supreme. Because at least with Strange Supreme, who's now a 2/2, you weren't losing a Strange Supreme lane by 1 power. I don't think this incentivizes you making Strange Supreme decks. I don't think this changes really any of that. The only thing it really makes you do is go, oh, look, I got an extra power in the lane I'm probably already winning because of Strange Supreme. It is a meaningless buff that it seems like a fluff buff. Just like, look, we need more buffs in here. What card gets hit the least by us adding a point of power? It's probably Strange Supreme. But yet, I don't think you can make this a 1-cost card. I don't think you can make this a 3-cost card. It's just a card that has to be exactly what it is. I don't think there's anything else you do to this card. It doesn't need the point of power. It didn't need it before. It doesn't need it now. You can make it a 2/3. It's still, you can make it a 2-1. It's still going to do the thing that you need it to do and do it really, really well because of the +2s that it's getting from each of the merges. That's why this card is so good, is the +2. So if you want to, like, buff the card, you make it a 2/0 that gains +3 with every merge. That's a buff to this card. That makes me want to play Thanos Strange Supreme. That's what I want. 2/2, there are just better tech versions of Thanos, and I don't see this really wanting to be a showcase in too many other decks, including Hammer Bros. Lastly is Weapon X, and I know I've talked about Weapon X before. This is the most meaningless point of power, because it still doesn't justify its play rate. It has 1 home, and it's not Destroy. The Destroy home for this card doesn't all of a sudden come to shine with this now being a 2/3. It just becomes a 2/3 that still doesn't get played. It's good in a Morgan Le Fay deck. I've been messing around in that space with Morgan Le Fay and Phantom X. In that space, I do think he's better than Wild Child, but the deck did not just get better because he got a point of power. The deck gets better when he starts at like a 2/2 and immediately starts getting +2s on destroys. That's when this card becomes awesome. A 2/3? Hooray. So yes, I do think that the gore change overall is more meaningful than Star-Lord Master of the Sun. And Star-Lord Master of the Sun just needs an easy, relatively already included step in all of those decks to make him do the thing that you want to do. You're adding a step. Huh? And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's noteworthy, but we will adjust. And just wait 2 weeks. We'll be back here again talking about Star-Lord in some way. Not because I think he'll be in an OTA again, but we will be wishing he will be here again. That's just my thought and theory. Let me know what you think of this down below. You know what to do. Comment, like, subscribe, share, and return. Because as always, I'll see you next time.